Hello, everybody. I am Todd Obert, President and CEO of Productive Corporation. Alongside me today, virtually, but technically on the same page, is Dan Piontek, Threat Prevention Regional Sales Manager for Checkpoint. And today, we are going to help you stay ahead of zero-day protection, one full step ahead as it is. And we're going to talk about SandBlast, which is the sandboxing technology from Checkpoint. Super cool stuff. Very excited to hear. Checkpoint, as you know, has been a leader in this space and continues to be. And Dan is going to show you some really cool stuff on their SandBlast product. But first things first, we are going to meet Productive in 1 minute. And from there, we are going to then look at the anatomy of a zero-day attack. And we're going to learn a little bit about how sandboxing is different from a traditional AV approach, as well as the CPU level detection and how that stops threats. Finally, we're going to put it all together, and Dan, with no help from me, is going to help you stay one step ahead of the attackers. So with that, if you have a question, utilize that chat feature, and we will get your question answered straight away, or I'll consolidate them and make sure that we are keeping this thing on time. And with that, let's giddy up and meet Productive in 1 minute. So who is Productive Corporation, you say? Well, I am so glad you asked. Productive Corporation provides security and storage software and services for mid-sized companies. We have a specialized team that helps you with technical questions, gets you engineer support, as well as helping with licensing questions and specifications. We also implement, test, and optimize all the products that we sell. We do everything from high-end security assessments, penetration tests, vulnerability assessments, as well as implementing and optimizing products, doing configuration assistance, and UTM configuration. We also create tons of third-party content, which is on our website at productivecorp.com/content, as well as our YouTube channel. All of this is knowledge that you guys have asked for. The bottom line is we have the resources to help you, whether it's implementation, assessment, licensing, or optimization services. We are here to help. Help at productivecorp.com. And one of the ways that we help is by putting on what we believe are relevant presentations, whether it's knowledge series, CryptoWare, Locky presentations you can find out there, or working with our tier one partners to talk about what they are bringing to market and how it's working. Today, we are very fortunate to have Dan Piontek of Checkpoint here to talk about sandblasting technology, or talk about sandboxing technology with the product SandBlast. And he is going to show us what's been happening in this space, how it's evolved, and how Checkpoint can help you to deal with this issue. So let's give a warm virtual round of applause for Dan Piontek. Dan?
Thanks, Todd. Appreciate the introduction. Good afternoon, everyone. And just to check real quick, make sure everyone can see my screen okay here.
Absolutely.
All right, sounds good. So again, as Todd has mentioned, my name is Dan Piontek. I'm the Threat Prevention Regional Sales Manager for Checkpoint. And by regional, it's basically the north central area of the United States, basically the Midwest. And so as he mentioned, I focus on our threat prevention product suite, specifically our SandBlast solution, which is our version of sandboxing technology. So I think we can all agree as security professionals, our common goal is really staying one step ahead of the threats that are out there. The hacker community is evolving and becoming more sophisticated and intelligent, and it's really kind of our common goal to prevent those attacks coming into our organization and staying one step ahead of what they're trying to do. So when you look at some traditional security controls that you may have in your environment, although very, very key to a solid security posture, these breaches are still happening around the globe. And it's really because these are reactive security controls. They're based on signatures to protect against known threats that are out there. I'm sure all of us have most, or if not all, of these solutions in place in some way, shape, or form, the antivirus and the IPS, the firewall, that type of thing. But the real challenge that we're facing today is, what do we do with the unknown malware that's coming in? These hackers that are coming after our organizations with zero-day attacks. How do we go about protecting our organization against those? And not just the organization, but if you break it down to a micro level, we'll really try and protect the data behind it and the people that work for your organization. And one of the unique parts of my job here at Checkpoint is being able to travel around the Midwest and meet with different organizations, from the very small to the very, very large, in all different verticals, whether healthcare, financial, retail, manufacturing. And there really is one thing in common. And when I say unique part, I don't like going into some of these conversations and hearing the bad things, but it just opens my eyes to really what we're faced with today. And really, no one is immune to these types of attacks. And with the help of media and social media, we're hearing more and more about these attacks. And it can happen for many, many different reasons. Obviously, people trying to break into your organization to steal data from you, or whether it's people out there that don't agree with what your organization stands for or what they actually do, they'll try to take down or extort you. Or on a global level, with politics or state-sponsored attacks. As you can see at the short list here, no one is immune. These are happening all over the place, and all of these people are faced with that problem with trying to stop the unknown malware from getting into your organization and doing some damage. So in facing that problem, we really have to take a step back and try to understand what we're faced with and who we're facing, right? As I mentioned earlier, these hackers are becoming more and more sophisticated and intelligent as this whole internet really evolves, right? As we have, threat intelligence sharing or security intelligence sharing as security professionals, as the good guys, these bad guys also have these communities, I'll call it, or an ecosystem that they're sharing their tactics and the tools that they're using, sharing the different variants of malware that they're coming up with in the hopes that those other people will change it and come up with something new. So it's a whole ecosystem of hackers that we're up against, and it's becoming more and more sophisticated as the days go on. And these guys, a lot of these guys, I shouldn't say just guys and gals, but it doesn't surprise me that these people are really the ones that have grown up in this technology. I reference back to a story I just read about a 16-year-old that was arrested in the UK for launching some malware through a very sophisticated botnet. And the reason I bring that up is he's 16. You think, wow, so young, but if you think about it, for the last 16 years, he's really grown up in technology and obviously learned how to use it and take advantage of it. So
yeah, we got a new generation of digital natives out there, right?
Exactly. That's exactly what we're up against here. And, I would say back in the day, you would see some sporadic attacks, whether they're DDoS attacks or trying to infiltrate your organization kind of on a whim. But now these people are really, really getting sophisticated, looking for weak targets through social engineering or trying to break into your organization. And they're really coming up with some very sophisticated and intelligent malware to do that job for them, taking advantage of botnets that are almost on a global scale with, fast fluxing IP addresses. So it's very hard to see all these things happening. And what it all means is it's very, very dangerous for our organizations and the data and the people behind it. So a few years ago, sandboxing technology came into the marketplace to combat this unknown malware trying to get in. And as some of you may know, a basic understanding of sandboxing technology, as a file or a download comes into your organization, it's sent off to a VM somewhere, whether it's an appliance on site or off in the cloud, and they open up the file to see what happens, to determine whether it's malicious or benign. Are they changing registry keys? Is it trying to make unnecessary network connections? All those types of things. But as I had mentioned earlier, this malware is becoming very intelligent and very sophisticated. And as you can see right there, some examples of what I mean. We've run into malware that have come into virtual environments, known malicious, and not done anything because they can recognize the environment that they're in. Or some of them have timestamps on them that they recognize they're in a VM, they know they're going to be emulated, so they won't do anything for 30 seconds, a minute, 5 minutes. So becoming very, very sophisticated, where sometimes the traditional sandbox is prone to evasion. So when looking at how this actually comes into your organization, I just want to give a quick glimpse on how this happens so you better understand on how we're providing a solution for that. So obviously, hackers are looking for vulnerabilities somewhere within your network. Vulnerabilities obviously made famous by Microsoft's Patch Tuesday. It's pretty crazy to think that every week we have to patch vulnerabilities. There's that many out there. But ultimately, they're looking to exploit that vulnerability, whatever it may be, to drop their shellcode into your organization and then call for that malware to run. But again, there's been evasion techniques that are being used at the exploit level that it makes it very, very hard for traditional sandboxing solutions to catch. This is just a quick key point, and this was made from Microsoft back at RSA, that just gives an example of some of the sophistication of these exploits that people are using. This return-orientated programming I'll touch on later as we talk about the SandBlast solution. But that's the majority of the attacks that are happening are coming through this type of exploit. So as we try to stay one step ahead of the hackers and the unknown malware that's trying to get into your organization, Check Point has evolved our sandboxing solution and come out with our SandBlast ZeroDay protection. SandBlast is really made up of two pillars, and these two building blocks are the foundation for our SandBlast solution. So the one pillar is our sandboxing technology, and like I said, it's been around for a while, but there's key differentiators within our SandBlast solution that I'll get to. In the sandboxing solution, and the traditional sandboxing solutions, they're at the OS level. We can get deep utilizing the latest chipsets from Intel to capture and prevent and see what's happening on the CPU level. Before we even need to send it up to emulate to see the malware, we can catch it before the shellcode is even dropped. The second pillar, which may seem as I go on here, may seem very simple, a very simple concept, but from a business continuity perspective is huge, and a lot of organizations are keen on that, and that's our threat extraction part of our SandBlast. And just to note, the NSA had just released a report basically saying, and they've been saying this for years, but they finally come to the conclusion and released a report stating that it should be, or it's recommended that you utilize some type of technology that what threat extraction does, and I'll get into that in a minute. So if I can go back to the attack chain that I mentioned earlier, just to give you an idea of how traditional sandboxing works and how SandBlast is differentiated. There are thousands and thousands of vulnerabilities out there, again, made famous by Microsoft Patch Tuesday. Adobe's doing it now. And there's millions of variants of malware out there, and it's constantly evolving, and that number is constantly growing. But if you look at the attack chain, it's the exploit level. And there's only a few exploits out there that can be utilized. Again, return-orientated programming, probably the key, is the most common, but there's only a handful of them. Now, the evasion code happens between the shell code and the malware, which makes traditional sandboxing, it won't work, right? They're looking for the malware, they're sending it up to emulate it and see what happens. But if there's an evasion code before that even gets in there, that traditional sandbox isn't going to work at the OS level. And that's where our CPU level detection within SandBlast really sets us apart here. We can catch it at the exploit level, and we utilize, like I mentioned before, we utilize Intel's latest chipset. We utilize their debugging API from a security perspective, and that is we can recognize legitimate pieces of code or memory being hijacked and manipulated to get that shell code into your organization. We can see that at the CPU level and stop it from entering your organization at that point before the file even gets in and off and manipulated. That is one of the key differentiators with our sandboxing solution to the traditional sandboxing solutions that are out there.
So, Dan, are you guys the only one that does it this way, or maybe why did you guys decide to do it this way? It seems great, but I'm just asking the question.
Sure. Yeah, no problem. At this point, yes, we are the only ones out there that do it at the CPU level. This is patent pending technology. I have to slow down because that's kind of a tongue twister. So the patent is pending right now, but we are the only ones that can detect at the CPU level at this time. The reason we decided to do this is if you're familiar with Checkpoint, we are 100% security focused, and if you look at the total of round numbers 3,000 employees at Checkpoint, over 2/3 are in engineering. So we look, at the end of the day, what we're really trying to do is help organizations become more secure. We saw a little bit of a gap in sandboxing technology, as I just went through and showed. So this technology came through an acquisition we made about 1.5 years, 2 years ago of a company called Hyperwise. And Hyperwise did just that, that CPU level detection. So when we looked at that, obviously first we went back to our engineers and said, is this something that you can develop and integrate into our SandBlast solution, or do we acquire this company and integrate it that way? And that's the route we took.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. So that's the first key differentiator compared to all the competitors out there in the traditional sandboxing space. The other one is really how do you get a safe file to that end user without interrupting business continuity. And this is where our threat extraction, the threat extraction pillar really comes into play. Again, going back to traditional sandboxing, inspection takes time, right? As you send it up there, and as the malware is becoming more sophisticated, and maybe it doesn't do anything for a minute or two, it's holding it up there. So in traditional sandboxing, there's really two ways to implement it. It can be in a blocking mode or non-blocking mode. The blocking mode is basically we're going to take that file and emulate it and won't pass it along to the end user until it's determined malicious or benign. Most of the time, people can't wait for those files, right? So traditional sandboxing are set up in a detect mode or a non-blocking mode. And what that means is as the file is sent up to the cloud or to a different appliance to be emulated, they're passing that same file off to the end user for business continuity purposes. That right there is risk of patient zero. They don't know if that file is malicious or not, but they're passing it along as they're emulating it. If it's benign,
you can't scan it, the traditional approach, right? You can't scan it and figure out what's going on and pass it to the end user in a reasonable amount of time, right? The latency is too high.
Correct. And so if it's benign, no harm, no foul. But if it happens to be malicious and they find it to be malicious, then they go back and say, hey, that file that we just passed on, that's malicious, and you got to do something about it. Again, introducing risk right there of patient zero into your organization. And with this sophisticated malware, if that thing doesn't run for 10, 15 minutes, well, that's 10 or 15 minutes that malware was at that endpoint and could have propagated across your organization. So that's where threat extraction. Oh, go ahead, Todd.
Well, that's a huge amount of time. I mean, you take a look at how quickly a threat can propagate across a network and can jump to shared, map drives and basically could propagate almost most of your environment in a very short amount of time.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And so threat extraction, really what it does is it's taking that file as we emulate it, whether it be in the cloud or a dedicated appliance, as we're emulating, simultaneously what we're doing is stripping all active content out of that file or that download and passing it on to the end user as a PDF, a cleaned PDF, a 100% secure document to the end user while we're emulating. And that's huge. That is also something that other competitors cannot do. But it's key to business continuity. It's immediate access to those files or those downloads, and it really is kind of proactive prevention, if you will. This is a fun slide. I always call that my little lightsaber in the middle there, but this is just a quick graphic on what I mean by stripping that active content out of the original document, reconstruct the document, and send it off to the end user while it's being emulated. That, again, that is simultaneous solutions going on at the same time. Now, one of the most common questions that I get is, what if I need that original file? What if it's an Excel spreadsheet and I can't utilize a PDF? So there's two ways to go about that. One, you can request the original document. If there's people on this call that are familiar with the Checkpoint solution, we have a feature called User Check. It's basically our interaction with the end user. But as you can see, if you need that original file, you can click and request it. All this is logged, so you can track how this is happening. Now, obviously, it's only being passed on to the end user if found benign. If it's malicious, we'll come back and tell you. But you can request the original document. At the same time, we don't always have to convert it to a PDF. We can keep it in its native format, Excel or Word. But again, we're just stripping all active content out of it.
So any macros, anything that
Java, macros, yeah, anything like that could, have hidden malware in it or hidden executables in it, we're stripping out and sending on to the end user.
Okay.
So again, just to reiterate on the SandBlast solution, the differentiators really is the deep inspection at the CPU level, being able to stop that malware before the shell code is even dropped into your organization. And then from a business continuity perspective, that threat extraction piece is real key. Now, for those familiar with Checkpoint, we try to be as simple and agile as possible when it comes to security. So we have been known for years for being the gold standard of management. This is another security control. If you are utilizing other security controls at Checkpoint, this can be managed from the same Smart Console. For those that are not Checkpoint clients, you can utilize this as a standalone solution, or you can bundle it in with other security controls that we can get into at another time. There's two ways to deploy this, as I kept previously mentioning, whether it's cloud or appliance. Some vendors only have a cloud solution, other vendors only have an appliance solution. We came out with both, and we utilize the cloud as much as we can, but realize that due to regulatory compliance reasons in the FinServ space or the healthcare space, there's just certain files that can't be sent off to the cloud. So we do offer a dedicated appliance on site, or I guess I could put a third line in here saying a hybrid, because we do have clients that utilize both our cloud and our appliance deployment options.
So Dan, is there a reason? I mean, I know compliance based, but I mean, performance is going to be the same, or is there any limitations with the appliance versus the cloud, or is it identical?
Well, it depends. We have different sizes of appliances, so obviously we'd have to go through a sizing exercise to see, traffic analytics and how many files you think would be emulated in a certain period of time to determine the size of the appliance. But from a cloud-based perspective, basically as the traffic comes into the Checkpoint gateway, we're shooting it off to the cloud, which is one of our data centers, and it's emulated there. Yeah. So from a performance perspective, the cloud don't have to worry so much about quote-unquote sizing. But if you are looking at a dedicated appliance, we'd have to go through an exercise.
Okay.
So this is a quick graphic kind of rounding out really from a threat prevention standpoint, how we utilize this technology to dynamically update your security posture. So as you can see, the files can be sent to either the appliance or the cloud. Checkpoint a few years back came up with our threat cloud, which is basically a data repository in threat intelligence sharing throughout the globe. So as a file is emulated, I'll just use the cloud example at this point, but as a file, excuse me, is emulated in the cloud, if it's found to be malicious and it's unknown malware, we immediately create a signature and send it up to our threat cloud, which then in turn dynamically sends it down to not only your gateways, but anyone else that's connected to our threat cloud, their gateways will be updated dynamically as this is happening. The reason that's important is if it's unknown malware, now it's known, we've created a signature, so the next time that type or string of malware, variant of malware comes into your organization, we don't have to emulate it anywhere. We've already created a signature, so it's stopped at either the IPS level or the antivirus level. And again, this gets into the intelligence sharing, the security threat intelligence sharing around the globe that really helps out all organizations and is really becoming another hot topic in the industry. So in summary, looking back at the SandBlast solution, with our CPU level and our OS level detection, it's been validated through third-party testing that we really are the top of the market at this point. The threat extraction piece, again, from a business continuity perspective, is huge, and we've brought on a lot of clients specifically for that reason alone. And then again, just being very agile with our security controls and our solutions, and easy to implement and integrate into either existing security controls, whether they're non-checkpoint or into your current checkpoint environment. So in our eyes, we've raised the bar on sandboxing solutions, and we're really heading out to the market again. Like I mentioned earlier, the unique part of traveling around the Midwest and meeting with all different types of organizations that share these same unique problems, it brings joy to really help these people out, because the internet's been out for a while, and it seems that the more and more connected devices that come on there, the more and more problems that our security professionals face, and we're always faced with that dilemma: security over convenience. People want it right here, right now, but they also want to be secure, and that's a real big hill to face, really. And so, with Productive, we'd love to partner and get to understand your environment and the challenges that you guys have, and help out in any way that we can. With that said, I've been in the security space for about 10 years, and I do understand that checkpoint isn't always a fit in every organization, and that's okay, whether it's you have security professionals and expertise in one technology or another. We understand, but in most cases, we can find a fit and definitely help out organizations, and we'd love that opportunity with Productive to come in and talk to you about some of the challenges you face, and if there's a chance that we can help out.
Yeah, and to that I'll add, we do believe Checkpoint can help out, right? We've been in the security business for a lot of years, and been helping a lot of you guys, and we brought Checkpoint in because we felt they could provide an additional level of security to the network. Obviously, they are 100% dedicated to it. We love the engineering expertise, and we love how they're taking a real leadership position in the space. Dan, thank you so much for your presentation. That was great. As I told Dan before we kicked this off, normally we pick and choose what slides our partners present, but we let Dan go whole hog because we are 100% in alignment with Dan and Checkpoint's message on this. So thank you so much for the presentation, and to our customers, thanks for coming. We really appreciate your time. We know you have a lot of things going on during the day, so the fact that you chose to spend 30 minutes with us is not lost on us. We appreciate it. Thank you very much. You know, for now, I'm Todd Obert from Productive, along with Dan Piontek of Checkpoint. We'll be signing off and wishing you a fantastic balance of your day and week, and hopefully we'll talk soon. Thanks, everybody.